Since we're approaching the 19th of Kislev, the Alter Rebbe's Day of Redemption, and the day when, as Rebbe writes in the Hayom Yom, Pada b'shalom nafshenu v'erev v'chayis nafshenu nitilanu. It wasn't just the day of the Alter Rebbe's redemption, but it's the day that Hashem gave us the light and life of our lives, and He redeemed our souls in peace. So I wanted to share two things tonight. The first is a very lachluchas diker. I don't know how to translate in English. Has a story has full of Hasidic moisture. Let's say it that way. That Mendel Futerfas once shared about how Reb Hendel Kugel became close to chassidus and how he started to learn chassidus and became one of the more prominent Hasidic mentors. Reb Hendel Kugel was a mashpia in Lubavitch. He was the mentor of the yeshiva students in Lubavitch, and he and his brother Reb Yosef, the way they both were inspired to join the Chassidim and to learn from Chassidim and to become such prominent Chassidim themselves was because of a certain interaction they had with a traveling chassid who had passed by their town in Plesnitz. I heard the story from Rabbi Farkash from Argentina. Amazing story. He said that he heard this from Mendel Futerfas himself, and the story goes like this. I had never before seen anyone who had davened and prayed in the path of chassidus, and this was a total new thing for them. This guy walks into their synagogue, he puts a tallis over his shoulder, and he's closing his eyes, and he's meditating, and he's singing, and he's humming. There's a few words of davening, and he stops, and he continues again, and he stops, and throughout davening, he is really concentrating very deeply, but he is not. He's not following the normal path that people would do when they came to the synagogue. They would join the minyan. There's a cantor. The cantor begins. The cantor ends, and everyone prays together with the cantor. But this guy, the minyan had a long finish, and this guy is going slow for hours and hours. He's praying and singing, and at times he's crying. It was Rosh Chodesh that day, and they noticed that when he got to Hallel, he was full of such exuberant energy, with joy, and yet at times in Hallel he was crying, until he got to the words in Hallel, "They surround me like bees, and they will be burned with fire." And he got to those words, he burst out crying. When he finished praying, they asked him to explain to them what happened, what's going on, why is he so into his prayers, and why does he pray differently than everyone else? So what he explained was like this. He said that when you pray, who is really praying? You have neshama, you have a godly soul, you have a part of God in you. You also have a human persona, an animal side. So when you pray, on the one hand, you're praying from your soul. Your neshama is talking to God. The siddur, the prayer book, is written in the language of the soul, and when you pray, your soul is praying. On the other hand, you have a whole other side of you. You have your animal soul, and you want your animal soul to also appreciate, to also connect with your prayers. It shouldn't just be that you're into your prayers with your neshama, with your soul, but your humanness is unaffected. So he said that when he began to pray, he tried to convey to his humanness what he's praying about, that his animal soul should also appreciate the goodness of Hashem, should also appreciate the richness of godliness, the richness of Torah. And so as he prayed, he tried to convey that in a way that he understood this as a human being, and not just as a soul understands it, but it should be something that's personal. And that's what he did throughout the prayers, until he reaches the Shema. And in Shema, he said the words, "Love Hashem b'chol levavcha," with all your hearts. There's hearts in the plural. Why does it say hearts in the plural? Because not only you meant to love Hashem with your godly soul, but also with your animal soul, also with your humanness. Okay? So he gets up to Hallel. He says in Hallel, there's a line in Hallel Ram al kol goyim Hashem, which literally means Hashem is above all nations. The verse is talking about how Hashem is infinite. Hashem is transcendent. He's not limited to creation. But the chassid told Reb Hendel and his brother that when he says this verse, he thinks about a chassidic interpretation to this verse. And that is how the goy inside of us, how the Gentile inside of us, feels that Hashem is aloof, removed, and not part of our lives, that divine providence isn't real, that just things are going on by themselves, and Hashem isn't part of our lives. Ram al kol goyim avai, Hashem is aloof and away. But as we continue in Hallel, we say the words, Hallelu as Hashem kol goyim. Praise be Hashem, all goyim. What does all goyim mean? All goyim doesn't only mean all nations of the world, it also means the goy inside of us, that the part of us, that our humanness, our animal side, that also should also praise Hashem. And so the Hallel Hashem kol goyim means that when you pray, you're supposed to also cause your regular human natural self to also praise Hashem. Okay, so he gets to that part of the prayer, then he turns to the next part of the prayer. Out of great constraint, I called out to you, Hashem, without great anxiety, and with abounding relief you answered me. And he explained that this verse is meant to convey how we, who have souls in bodies, are dealing with a formidable challenge that the body puts us in darkness, so we're unaware and insensitive to what's really going on from the perspective of our soul. That as the goyim say, as it says in Hallel, Lama Yimra Goyim Ayin Keim. The Gentile within us says, "Where is your God? It's not real." So we're contending with this friction, contending with this challenge, and we continue on in Hallel, and we say these words: "Sevavuni kedverim." They surround me like bees. What does that mean? He said the animal soul is compared to a bee. A bee has two parts. A bee has a stinger, and a bee also creates honey. The animal soul says to you that when there's someone in your life that's annoying you, that's stepping on your toes, so you may be tempted to respond. You may be tempted to hurt them back. And you may justify it to yourself and say they deserve it. You may say that with righteous indignation, you might say this guy is terrible and I need to stand up for myself. I need to put them down to protect myself. So with this voice of righteousness, you could be seduced to think that your vengeance and your attack on the other person is justified. So it's like the bee that with the sweet honey, words of sugar, of honey, he convinces you, but meanwhile he is poisoning you, he's hurting you, he's putting his stinger into you. While he is saying such nice things and he's portraying how wonderful it is to hurt someone, whether through silent resentment. Don't do anything back to them. Just have silent resentment towards them. Just be silent and feel resentment to them. You didn't do anything. Just quiet. You didn't say anything. You didn't do anything. But the truth is, said this chassid to Reb Hendel Kugel, that is the animal soul sticking his stinger into your heart and ruining and hurting your soul. How he says the neshama, the soul, when the soul realizes how the animal soul is like a bee, and it uses all these sweet words, and yet it's attacking you. The godly soul just breaks out in tears, and that's why he cried when he got to that part of the prayers. But yet he says, God, Hashem destroys the bees like fire burning up thorns, and Hashem rescues us from the animal soul. So hearing this, how this chassid prayed, Reb Hendel and his brother were amazed, and they asked this traveling chassid, tell us, where did you learn these teachings from? And he told them that he learned these teachings in the city of Lubavitch, and that's what inspired them to come to the city of Lubavitch. And Reb Hendel, as I mentioned, became the first mashpia, the first mentor of the yeshiva of Tom Chetmim in Lubavitch. L'chaim. The first story I want to share tonight It's a rich, rich story, and it portrays a lot about what prayer looks like from the perspective of chassidus, and what life looks like from the perspective of a chassid. And on that note, on the note of the friction between the godly soul and the animal soul, I want to share a little bit of the history of the Alter Rebbe and his the challenges that he and his followers had at that time because of the persecution of those who were the camp of the Misnagdim, those in the camp who opposed chassidus. The Alter Rebbe studied from his teacher, the Mezitcher Maggid, who led a group of Chassidim called the Chavrai Kaddish, the Holy Brotherhood. When the Maggid passed away, the Chassidim appointed the Alter Rebbe after Reb Mendel of Vitebsk, who succeeded the Maggid and taught chassidus after the Maggid passed away. After he traveled to Israel, the Alter Rebbe wanted to move to Israel as well, but he told the Alter Rebbe he must stay, and the Chavrai Kaddish, the Holy Brotherhood, apportioned various segments of the world in Europe and Israel to various students of the Mezitcher Maggid, so that each student should be responsible to share and spread chassidus in the region that they were given. So, in addition to this, the Alter Rebbe also was appointed to be the maybe the word would be general director of how chassidus should be studied, and how it should be, not how it should be studied, but how it should be basically a sort of like a central office, let's say it that way, of all the various segments of the Mezitcher Maggid's students. So among the activities of the Alter Rebbe was the Alter Rebbe would send funds to the Kollel, to the group of Jews that had gone with their Mendel Vitebsk to Israel, and to support the Chassidim in Israel. And so there was monies that the Alter Rebbe raised, and money that was raised by other groups, and they therefore had a meeting to discuss this activity and other activities. And of course, what was really on the mind of everyone was the incredible antagonism that they experienced on the behalf of because of the antagonists to chassidus. At that time, there became widespread the cherem. There was a ban made against chassidim. Of course, this was made because of the ignorance that people had at the time to chassidus. They thought chassidus was some kind of heretical movement, and that chas shalom, it was some kind of a continuation of Shabsai Tzvi Yimach Shammai, who proclaimed himself to be Mashiach and ended up converting to Islam. So the chas shalom, they thought the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid Alter Rebbe were doing something similar chas shalom. So because of the antagonism, they eventually convinced leaders, prominent Jewish leaders, among them the Vilna Gaon, that the Chassidim were indeed heretics. And that led the Vilna Gaon to issue a proclamation of cherem, of excommunication of the Chassidim. Because this excommunication became widespread, what the cause was that the persecution of the Chassidim was at a whole new height. It was considered a mitzvah to inform the government about, to lie to the government and inform the government that any chassid is doing something wrong against the government, that he's committing acts of treason. There were not just informants to the government, there's also physical skirmishes and attacks to chassidim. It was really, really terrible. So the Chavrai Kadisha wanted to impose a ban, according to Kabbalah, against the opponents of Chassidim. But the Alter Rebbe was vehemently opposed to this idea, and instead, the Alter Rebbe had a different idea, which he presented to them, which they agreed to. At this meeting where they were discussing the money sent to Eretz Yisrael for the Mendel Vitebsk and others, the Alter, in the year of Tavkuf Mem Beis, 1882, they was much earlier than 1882, I believe. Anyways, they were discussing what they could do because of this, because of the persecution. So the Alter Rebbe, his opinion was that they should make a public debate. They should invite the leaders of the opponents of Chassidim to a public debate. And Alter Rebbe said, I am certain, the kindness of Hashem, that I'll be able to respond to the questions, the questions they have according to Torah against chassidus, and I'll be able to protect and prove the authenticity of chassidus. So, but first of all, Alter was very respected, but also because, as I mentioned before, there were various regions that were given to various members of the Holy Brotherhood, and the strongest opposition to chassidus came from Lithuania, and the Alter Rebbe was the one who governed the chassidus in Lithuania. So therefore, his opinion was respected, and they agreed that he should indeed create this debate that he wanted to do. The Alter Rebbe consulted with his brothers, and they agreed this would be a good path. And then and with the acceptance of the Chavraya Kaddish of the Holy Brotherhood, this was set in motion. There's more to the story, which I'm glossing over a bit. The opponents of Chassidim weren't really interested in this debate. There were those who thought it would be a good idea because it would expose, they thought, that the Chassidim were ignorant of Torah, and they were proved in the eyes of all that because there was a lot of Bnei Torah, a lot of people who were very knowledgeable in Torah, which being attracted to study Chassidus, and it was spreading like wildfire. So there was some leverage, some to the argument that we should do something, but others disagreed, and they said that, how do you know that they're so ignorant? They say that the leader of the Chassidim is very proficient in Torah. Who says we'll be able to prove that they're so ignorant? It was back and forth. And the Alter Rebbe actually put out a public letter asking that there be such a debate. In addition to the public letter, the Alter Rebbe also had Chassidim who posed as non-Chassidim, traveling to various strongholds of the antagonists, and they would pose as preachers of Torah, and they would share Torah. But in addition to sharing Torah, they would also say we have to do something about this terrible this terrible group, this terrible, they called the Chassidim the sect, this terrible sect that's conquering all these souls to heresy. We have to have a debate, and so that's how this took weight. The Alter Rebbe's Chassidim strategically maneuvered around various strongholds of the Misnagdim, of those opponents to Chassidim, and they created this energy that, yes, we have to have a debate. And eventually the Vilna Gaon was consulted. The Vilna Gaon's opinion was that we should not suggest a debate. However, if the Chassidim ask for a debate, we are obligated, according to Torah, said the Vilna Gaon, to respond to them. And so it was agreed. I'm glossing over the story, back and forth. But eventually it was agreed to hold a public debate in the city of Minsk. So the Alter Rebbe announced to the Chassidim that he was going to go there, and initially the opponents of Chassidim wanted the Alter Rebbe to come, to be summoned to their like town hall room, and there they were going to cross-examine him. But of course, it was not just a something that wouldn't be beneficial, because then no one else would be able to attend and see what happened. But also, it was a dangerous thing to do. I mean, they were talking with people who were serious opponents of Chassidus, and as I mentioned, who weren't afraid to use their hands, etc. So the Alter Rebbe instead suggested they meet in the synagogue, in public, and the Alter Rebbe asked, he said, it's impossible to debate with hundreds of people. He said, can we arrange it this way? Can I can I ask questions to those who want to debate with me and Torah, and only those who are going to respond to my questions. Can we have only those people be the ones who ask me questions? So they said, we'll discuss it. We'll get back to you. And they came to the conclusion that they had a meeting, and they came back to Alter Rebbe and they said, we want to first ask you questions, and after you answer our questions, will we consider to answering your questions? Okay. So Alter Rebbe arrived in Minsk, and he went into the main synagogue, and he shared Torah. And he shared Torah as the Alter Rebbe could share Torah. Obviously, it was a electric experience, and it really made a strong impression on everyone there. First of all, even those who weren't proficient in Torah, just seeing the Alter Rebbe and hearing him talk made a very strong impression. And in addition to the teachings that the Alter Rebbe shared and the incredible experience that it was, besides that, a rumor started to spread that there were angels in the room, because it was so amazing. So everyone shared, and the story started to grow. Oh, and not just it was so amazing, but there was actually, and the Rebbe, he's like the Baal Shem Tov, and he has used the names of God, and there's chassidim, they're flying in the room, and they were like angels. That's what people were actually saying. And anyways, the Alter Rebbe didn't have a significant following in Minsk. There was no minion of chassidim in Minsk. There's no group of chassidim in Minsk, and therefore they gave the Alter Rebbe a segment of a synagogue to pray in, because he didn't have his own synagogue. He should pray there in that synagogue. And after Shabbos, the Tuesday after Shabbos, they're going to have a group who are going to interrogate or ask Alter Rebbe questions, and he's going to respond. They'll have this debate. So that Shabbos, the Alter Rebbe, he began praying at 9 o'clock. Now, their custom, the custom of his opponents, was to begin praying at Vasikin very early in the morning. So by 9 o'clock, they already finished their Shabbos meal. And everyone was very curious. You have to understand, the Jewish world at that time was consumed by this discussion about Chassidim. Everyone, you are on a side. Everyone was on a side. So the Alter Rebbe is in Minsk. Everyone wanted to see who this man is, and everyone's talking about him. So those who were more curious, and they weren't afraid of going into a heretical space, they went to go see the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe's prayers were something to see. The Alter Rebbe himself was a Torah reader, and many times the Alter Rebbe, although our custom is that the Torah reader stands to the left of the person making the blessings, the one who's called the Torah, the Alter Rebbe's personal custom was to stand on the right of the Torah reader. As I mentioned last week, the Alter Rebbe was a phenomenal daikon. He was phenomenal in his precision in reading the Torah. And as I mentioned last week, although he followed Ashkenazic pronunciation, yet somehow you could tell when he read the Torah the difference between an ayin and an aleph, and a chaf and a ches, although that's something which only Sephardim have a tradition. Ashkenazim don't have a tradition how to do this. Alter Rebbe somehow was able to do that. And when someone, the previous Rebbe said, when someone was called to the Torah, and the Alter Rebbe read the Torah, he experienced a light of Hashem. It was something amazing to hear the Alter Rebbe read the Torah. So the Alter Rebbe, and not only that, when the Alter Rebbe would sometimes look at the person called to the Torah, and very often people who were called to the Torah would faint just being in the presence of the Alter Rebbe, and looking at them, they would actually faint by the bima when the Alter Rebbe would look at them. Anyways, the prayers went on for some time. During a regular weekday time for prayer, on a regular Monday or Tuesday, the Alter Rebbe's prayers went on in the general minyan, not just his personal prayers, but the prayer of his minyan, the prayer as a group, would go for over an hour and a half, on a regular morning prayer. On Shabbos, it was twice as much besides the time for the Torah reading. It was twice as much as the time, over 3 hours of praying besides the Torah reading. So seeing the Alter Rebbe and hearing him sing and seeing him pray made an incredible impression on anyone who came to see this. Besides that, after the Alter Rebbe's prayers, in the evening, there was a chassidus. There was a time to that the Alter Rebbe held the third meal in public, and thousands of people literally came to come to the synagogue. And because in the synagogue there was so many people there, there was a discussion whether or not they could remove the bima, remove the lectern where the Torah is read. Can they remove it on Shabbos or not? But there were so many people before there was any discussion. The lectern was already out because there was so many people there. So just to give you an insight of the kind of energy that was in that room, I'm going to share with you the memoirs of a certain chassid named Rabbi Abba of Chashnik. Rabbi of Chashnik, when he was 12 years old, he was engaged to, and that was the custom in those days, to get married very young. And his father-in-law was a follower of Rav Ernest Tasheller. Rav Ernest Tasheller was originally a student of the Alter Rebbe, but after the Alter passed away, he started his own Gute Yidschaft, he started his own chassidus, and Rabbi Abba Chashnik, he was a follower of Ernest Tasheller. Ernest Tasheller was known for his great excitement, for his great enthusiasm, for the way he spoke with such fire and enthusiasm. To give you an insight to how excited he was, there was a chassid Alter Rebbe who joined Rabbi Ernest Tasheller for some time. His name was Rabbi Moshe Levin. Moshe Levin was very, very knowledgeable, very, very smart, and he joined Rabbi Ernest Tasheller for quite some time. Moshe Levin had a bit of a speech impediment, so when at one point Rabbi Ernest Tasheller was so excited, he got up on the table and he started to speak with such great excitement, but somehow he lost his excitement as he was standing on the table, and now he didn't know what to do. Should he get off the table, stand on the table? And Rabbi Moshe, who had this speech impediment, he said, Yebe. He couldn't say a resh, he would say a yud. Yebe. Don't be embarrassed. You can come down. And then eventually Rabbi Moshe went back to become a student of the Achas of the Mittler Rebbe. And he was getting back to Rabbi Tasheller. His Rabbi Abba Chashnik, his father-in-law, was a close follower of Rabbi Ernest Tasheller. So when Rabbi Abba turned bar mitzvah, his father-in-law took him to see Rabbi Ernest Tasheller. Rabbi Ernest Tasheller said, and Rabbi Abba Chashnik said, although he came to see the Mittler Rebbe and he saw that Tzemach Tzedek, but Rabbi Abba said, I'll never forget my moments with Rabbi Ernest Tasheller, although he wasn't my Rebbe and consider him my personal spiritual mentor and Rebbe, but he certainly is a chassid, kodesh b'torah, he's certainly a holy person. And when I met him and I heard him, I actually experienced, he said, the Holy of Holies, the words of the Alter Rebbe. That's what Rabbi Abba Chashnik said. So, Rabbi Ernest Tasheller said that he was 17 years old when the Alter Rebbe came to Minsk, and he was there. He said, being there, when the Rabbi Ernest Tasheller started talking about the Alter Rebbe, he had to stop talking. He had to stop talking because he was so excited. And he started saying what happened that year when the Alter Rebbe came to Minsk. He couldn't say anything. He started saying this. He said, Elokus, Kedusha, ay, ay, ay. He said, godliness, holiness, ay, ay. To see the Sartzva Hashem, to see the ministering angel of Hashem. That's what Rabbi Tasheller said about the Alter Rebbe. So he said that being there was like being at Mount Sinai. And he said the Alter Rebbe shared a teaching of Torah. Many years later, this teaching, a copy of this teaching, Rabbi Chashnik gave this teaching to the previous Rebbe. That's how we have this teaching. The teaching began with the word Shema Yisrael. You know, the prayer that we say every single day, Shema Yisrael. The Alter Rebbe explained, Shema Yisrael. A Jew feels, a Jew understands that Havaya, that Hashem's name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, Hashem's name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the 4 letters of Hashem's name, allude to the 10 divine energies in the highest world of Atzilus. So a Jew feels that Havaya Echad, that all of these 10 spheres are one, are in a state of absolute oneness. Although we talk about 10 ways that Hashem connects with creation, the truth is that it's all one. And then he said, the neshama feels this. The neshama feels that the oneness of Hashem. The neshama feels that the 10 energies are real, all one. But the neshama sees this clearly in heaven. However, the soul comes into a body, and even if the body, even if the mind is full of Torah, nevertheless, all you can fill your mind with is understanding. You can't feel. And therefore, he says the advice is, what should you do? Because you can't feel, the advice is you need to do tshuva. You need to transform the darkness in the world to light. And how you do this? Through loving Hashem. And then he said this, that a Jew has to meditate how Hashem sends a soul to a body to be a candle. As it says in the Torah, a candle of God is the soul of man. And just like a candle of light illuminates a house, so too the neshama is sent to the world to illuminate its surroundings with Torah and service of Hashem. And then he continued, the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe continued and said, V'hei bracha b'kerev haaretz. We say in our prayers, Baruch Hashem and O'el Madel, blessed be Hashem from one world to the next. Usually it's translated as forever and ever, but the Alter Rebbe said that a soul is meant to bring down godliness from Alma de Iskasia, from the higher hidden worlds, to be revealed in this physical world. And to be Bekerev Haaretz, to be revealed in our hearts in a way that we feel a yearning to be close to Hashem. That's what the soul is meant to do. And to feel that Havaya Echad, Hashem is one, that in all of the seven directions, all the four directions in the seven heavens, that it's all connected to Aluf Shalom. The word Echad, one, is an acronym for three words. Aleph stands for the one Hashem, Aluf Shalom, the master of the world. Ches is equal to 8, representing the seven heavens and the earth. And Dalet is the four directions. So a Jew is meant to feel how Havaya Echad, that not only is Hashem our strength and our life, but Hashem is one, that all the seven heavens, the four directions, are all part and the one with Hashem, there's nothing besides Him. So the Alter Rebbe continued and said this: and when a Jew thinks deeply, how his soul gets this, his soul understands this, and it's only the cold intellect of his body, of his animal soul, that prevents him from realizing this. So the Alter Rebbe said, imagine if someone sent by a king to do a certain mission, and the person who's appointed by the king doesn't do his mission. It causes a damage to the government, to the monarchy, because this person is meant to do a mission for the king. So Alter Rebbe said this is true by a regular king. Think about the king of all kings, Hashem, who He has placed a person in this world to do a mission, to illuminate the world. And Hayom La'asosam, the time to serve Hashem is now, as we are in this physical world. And Hashem has placed this upon us. And if a person doesn't do the mission, then he goes into many, many reincarnations. And after all these reincarnations, it's still not clear it has to be accepted again to again do this mission. So Hashem places this mission upon our shoulders. So when a Jew feels the intensity of this responsibility, he cries out to Hashem and he says, Alecha avai nafshi yesa, to you Hashem I lift my soul. He feels a great yearning to serve Hashem and to show up. And then the Alter Rebbe says, V'shav v'rafalei, he does tshuva and Hashem heals his soul, and then he's able to embrace the task and do what he's supposed to do. And to do this with fire and feeling. So this is what Reb Abba Chashnik shared. Rabbi Chashnik shared what he heard from Maris Tasheller, who heard this from the Alter Rebbe on that Shabbos in Minsk. And the Mitzvah Hashem, next week, God willing, I'll share how the debate actually went. All right, a good tevach, a freilich tevach. The main thing is that the month of Kislev is a month of redemption, a month of miracles. And we need miracles for our soldiers, miracles for the hostages, we need miracles, each of us in our own lives, and we should see the miracles, the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, as we're approaching the Gula of this Kislev. We're coming to the Gula on the 9th of Kislev. We should have the Emes Gula, the real Gula with Mashiach Tzidkenu, without any vikuchim, without any debates, without any challenges. B'chesed v'rachmim. L'chaim, good vach.
Amen, l'chaim. Thank you.
Did you get my stuff I sent you?